You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marisa Lonic, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mamas, and welcome back to another awesome episode of the Mama Work It podcast. This week, I'm thrilled to welcome Blessing Adesiyan, the founder of Mother Honestly, a platform reshaping the future of women and families at home and in the workplace. Prior to founding Mother Honestly and Villo, she spent 15 plus years in Fortune 100 companies such as Microsoft, HP, PepsiCo, DuPont, BASF, where she built operational excellence framework across the United States, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. She has been featured on Fast Company, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Crane's Business, Parents, Fortune Magazine, and more. Blessing is also an international speaker who has spoken across multiple media enterprises such as Facebook, Pinterest, NBC, ABC, Fox, NASA, Fortune, and so many others. We are going to be diving into all things motherhood today, and I couldn't think of a more perfect person to have that conversation with. Blessing, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm like, whoa, who are you talking about? Is that me?
It's you,
funny.
it's you.
It's funny how you just keep working and you're not exactly counting anything. But yeah, it was very nice to sort of hear that.
Yeah, of course. Well, good. Well, first things first, I always like to ask our guests, tell us a little bit more about you. You know, we just heard a lot about your significant professional life, but I know there's plenty more to you on a personal, a family level. So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I actually grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. For those who don't know, that's sort of in the western parts of Africa, and I spent my adult life there. And, I moved to the US when I was about 17, attending the University of Florida, which I absolutely loved. So I studied chemical engineering and left UF to go to DuPont. And I was one of those millennials right after the recession who, was fortunate to have a job. And I showed up with a baby, with a 1-year-old. And so that was my first intro into working motherhood in America. And I remember just writing about it. I was just writing about my experience and what I was going through as a young mother. And then I eventually became a single mother, and I was writing about that as well. And so that was really my how I really caught the bug of really trying to understand what mothers were facing in the workplace. And then I had the opportunity of viewing that from the lens, right, of a single mother as well, and then viewing that from the lens of a woman of color. So it was very, very interesting to just sort of I started taking notes and asking questions. And I remember being a part of the DuPont Women's Network and ending up leading the network and reinvigorating the network because at the time it was literally dead. And when I showed up with my daughter, I said, whoa, we need something. We need a network. We need someone to lead this network. And when we couldn't find anyone, I raised up my hand and I led the network for about 4 years. And what was remarkable was the stories that women started telling me about the challenges that they were facing at work. And so I think that was really what laid the foundation for Mother Honestly, because I would just, have them over at my office and just start having these conversations about who is watching the baby? How are you here at 2 a.m.? Remember, I was a chemical engineer. So a lot of times I would have to leave my baby to come into the workplace at around 2 a.m., depending on what we were doing. And, I would maybe be running a test or leading a few operations. And a lot of times we needed to troubleshoot, in the middle of the night. And so as a single mother, I have to think about who is going to watch my baby when I need to go in. And so having to make those arrangements, those were the things that got me interested in discussing working motherhood in America.
Yeah, yeah. I had no idea that you entered the workforce already a mom. I mean, what a juggle, because it's already a transition to go from being a student into a corporate role, or really just any real first career job. That's a transition in itself. And you did that with a baby. So kudos to you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really hard. I mean, I look back and I'm not sure how I survived because it was very intense. I operated my family, myself and my baby from a city in Atlanta and you know flew into Parkersburg, West Virginia, and I was just like, what is going on? So I immediately experienced the shock of a new job, the shock of a new city, and being in a city that was predominantly white, quite frankly. And so I had to really learn to to survive. And so I started putting in, reading a lot of books. Actually, I started reading a lot of books about career development, career management, being a single mother, being a woman of color in the workplace. And I couldn't find a lot of those resources. So I ended up just writing, right, my own blog. So at the time I was writing the blog and it was called Working Mom Journal. I laugh when I remember, because a lot of people think, wow, Mother Honestly is such an overnight success, but they don't understand the backstory. So I'm actually glad you asked me, because I haven't spent a lot of time to really reflect on the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually started Mama Work It as a blog for myself in a similar situation. I mean, it was similar in that I was a working mom juggling, managing some of these struggles, and it was really therapeutic for me to write about it in that moment. So I can totally relate to what you mean.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, you do a lot of advocacy work for working parent resources, and I understand why. In your viewpoint, how should women and families be supported in a world where resources like childcare, paid leave, all of those things that working moms need are so limited? Like, how can we be doing better?
Wow. I mean, I think it's very hard. It's very hard right now to even think about doing better, right? Because there are so many challenges that women are facing, whether it's on the home front, on the work front. I think without even going into, I think the most important challenge we can see that is at least evident right now is the childcare, the lack of access to childcare. Childcare workers are no longer in abundance like they used to be in the past. We are also seeing, more women working from home. And so, there's a tendency to say, whoa, I'll just keep the baby. Right. And so there's challenges there to getting the right support for mom. And if you don't have the right childcare worker to watch your child, then of course, you start running into issues. So women are facing childcare challenges. They're also facing problems with employers, right? A lot of employers, their patience have already run out. We started off the pandemic with, well, we're going to do everything we can to support you. And now you sort of walk that back, right? So a lot of the empathy that was there at the beginning of the pandemic is no longer there. All of that is now obsolete. It's gone. And so women are having to sort of navigate this on their own. And I say women, not to say men are not affected, but we know through data that women are the ones affected the most by the lack of childcare and the lack of empathy within our workplaces. And so, how can women do better? I mean, or how can society do better? I think that we need to, we definitely need to support mothers. We need to put policies. We need to have family friendly policies at the state and at the national level, and even at the private level. So, how can we work with corporations to bring family friendly policies to the forefront so that employees can get the support they need, whether it's backup care, whether it's the ability to work from home if a child is sick, the flexibility required, when you're a breastfeeding mom, for example. Those are some of the challenges. I think I have a unique lens because, like I said, I came into corporate America with a baby, and I now have 4 kids. 3 of them was born, while I was in corporate America. So I have a good sense of, and I've been fortunate to work with various Fortune 100 companies, and I can tell you the support is not there. I mean, there's a lot of, empty talk and empty policies. And when you get to the managerial level, that's when you realize that, whoa, this is all talk. Because there's a difference between a company that says we offer, 3 months of paid parental leave, and then a manager communicating to you that, wow, this is such an inconvenient time for you to get pregnant, right? So those two things are not talking to each other. And that continues to affect the psyche of mothers. I think when we ask a lot of mothers in our community how they are feeling, a lot of them it's psychological, right? It's psychological stress, because even though some employers are not coming out to say, don't do that, or do this, they are feeling like the employers want them to, whether coming to the workplace or be constantly available. I know specifically for me, even during the pandemic, I had a manager tell me that, you need to be always available. And I said, in a pandemic, I don't think so. So those are
Yeah.
the challenges.
Yeah. I like how you brought up the empty talk because I feel like a lot of things float around, either on the internet or just, in job descriptions or things like that. And they sound great. But when push comes to shove and you're in that role, it's not real, right? Like the example that comes to mind for me, and I've never worked for a company that had this, but I see it all the time, is unlimited PTO. Is that
Mm,
real? Is that
no,
real?
no, no. I think that what is real is the fact that we are living in a society that is basically riding on the free labor of women. What is real is that we are living in a society that has made it okay for women to continue to do the work of raising our next generation, without the willingness to provide the support that is required. When you look at other nations similar to the U.S., whether it's the United Kingdom, Germany, or Finland, you see that a lot of the societies have structures in place to support the inflow, right, of the next generation. And what we have done in the U.S. is say that we support, new life by policy, right? But we don't support, by execution. So we're not willing to execute, but we're willing to say, we're pro life, which I don't have anything against. I'm not even, I have zero political affiliations. I tell people, I'm like, hey, I wasn't even born here, so I have no clue what a lot of this means. But what I know is that we need to start putting in systems and structures that supports new life, that supports the ability of a mother or a new family to raise that child in a society that cares. We are living in a society that, quite frankly, doesn't care, right, about women and doesn't care about the children. Because if we do, I think what we have seen is during the pandemic is that it has exposed a lot of the cracks, right? A lot of the empty talks. It has exposed that. And so, how can we begin to rebuild a nation that centers care? I think that's the real question.
Yeah. So let's talk about the employers for a minute. You mentioned, this should be at the federal, at the state, and at the private practice level. What can employers themselves do to support families holistically as we continue to either navigate through the pandemic or beyond the pandemic, really?
I think if a lot of employers, I think it starts with empathy. I think that the empathy shouldn't be dependent on whether or not we're in a pandemic. I think the empathy needs to constantly be there, because everyone is a caregiver. And I think that, the only reason we're talking about, the mothers, is because we can see it's very evident the stress. When I speak to a lot of employees that don't have kids, a lot of them are feeling it too, but they can't say anything, right? They can't say anything because they can see that, whoa, mothers are being penalized for saying something. So when you look at even single employees that may have a grandparent or a parent that needs extra attention, they're not able to speak up about their own needs or their own challenges because wow, look at my colleague who has a child and she's not even being respected. She's not, she's not being promoted. She's been penalized for having a child. So I think we can start with empathy. We can start with communicating that empathy and making sure that it's being cascaded from the top down. Because a lot of times these things come from above and they just stay there, right? Companies or CEOs would come out and say, we're going to have unlimited PTO. And what does that mean, right? What does that mean to me as an employer, as an employee? Right? Does that mean that I, get to detect my own PTO? Because what a lot of them don't communicate that those PTO are tied against various targets, right? And so when employees don't meet those targets, they can't take those PTO. It's really backwards. It's really backwards. And so for me, I think, employers can start with empathy. They can start with creating a policy around care, a policy that provides care for all of its employees, whether you're a mother or you are a father or you're a parent or non-parent. You should be able to support what matters most to you. And I think we are living in a society that is penalizing us for caring, for caring for our own family, for our own loved ones.
Yeah. I just got chills when you said that. I mean, when you put it down to the simplest terms, that's what it really equates to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know working women spend a lot of hours in the workplace. And I know right now, for many of them, that is home. But when you think about a traditional sense, non-pandemic times, we're in that space, we're in that environment for many hours of the day. We've kind of talked a little bit about the support there, but what about the support when we're at home? What about partners? How can partners show up for moms to help kind of lift the crushing demands that wait for them in the second shift, kind of after job number one is done, and then they get home and have job number two of taking care of everything else in the house, the kids, the home management, all of that.
Absolutely. I actually call it the third shift, right? Because when you look at a family's day or a mother's day, it starts very early, and that's the first shift, right? Getting the kids out of bed, giving them a bath, grabbing homeworks, breakfast, packing lunch, putting a baby into a car seat. By the time you do all that, I remember when I was, in corporate America and I would do all that in the morning, it takes about 2 to 3 hours. And by the time I get to work, I'm already exhausted, right? So then I start my day at work and I finish that and I rush home and I begin the third shift. And so for me, I think it's important. I think what we are finding out, which has been made even more pronounced in the pandemic, is that women absolutely need support on the home front and that we can no longer lay the burden of the home front on the woman's feet. It's something that I have constantly preached against because we have basically told women that yes, you can participate in the workforce, but your role at home has not changed, right? Meanwhile, men, right, have completely left everything on the home front to women, and they have dominated the workforce, right, for centuries, right? And so now we are looking at a situation where both mom and dad work on the work front, and there's no one really owning, right, the home front. And if anyone actually owns the home front, it is still the mother. And so we now have a generation of ambitious women that are literally doing the work of two people. They are managing the home front full time and they're also managing the work front full time. And so I think that is where we're starting to see the reason why women are anxious, we are stressed, we are exhausted, we are depleted. It's a matter of national emergency, especially in a pandemic where that we know that the childcare hours have increased. We know that the house chores, hours on house in the house, at home doing the chores, we know that those hours have also increased. We know that, women are now having to take care of their elderly ones even more, as a result of the pandemic. And so all of this burden are falling on women, and there is zero safety net. There's zero safety net to catch us, because everything that was instituted in the beginning of the pandemic, like the child tax credit, some of the paid leave around COVID. If you get COVID, you still get paid. All of those things have gone away. Backup care that was instituted by a lot of employers, those things have all gone away. And so now we are back to square. In fact, we may be worse off than we were before. Right. And so that is why we need to start thinking about how can we lift the burden of the home front, from the shoulders of women. And there's so many ways to do that, right? The first thing is equal partnership. The first thing is for us to redistribute the division of labor on the home front in a way where both parties carry the load. If there's a spouse, if you're like me and you're a single mom, or you were, I was a single mom, right? So if you're like me and you were a single mom, then it's totally different for you, because everything falls on your shoulders, and a lot of time there's no disposable income to outsource this work, right? So at that point, it's another challenge. It's a different challenge for those set of women. But when we look at a home where there's a partner, then we need to start talking about redistributing that labor, and we need to start talking about what that looks like. I recommend for sure picking up Fair Play if you're not familiar with that. It's a book by my friend Eve Rodsky, where she talks about redistributing the division of labor around the in the household, and exactly how to do that. And I think what is happening is that, if we're unable to redistribute that labor, then we find out that women can participate fully in the workforce. That's why we see that, there's a ceiling, right? There's a glass ceiling, and the glass ceiling is only there because women are doing too much. Women are doing too much at home and at work. And so you can't exactly go higher or elevate your career if you continue to do all the dishes and the cooking and the cleaning and the grocery runs. There's no way. It's impossible.
Yeah, I think we forget that the traditional, corporate working schedule was made for a man whose wife or partner was at home doing that other job that you mentioned, right? It has never been tweaked, at least tweaked enough to support the evolution of both parents working.
Absolutely, it has not. And what is happening is that, men are getting away with it. I mean, I have no problem saying this, because I had the same situation when I got married the second time around, and I was very clear around the division of labor in my house. And before I knew it, I was doing more, and I was like, no, no, no. You're not going to get away with this, because if we are both earning an income, I want to continue to maintain that level of income. I don't want to, be dependent on you. And so I was very clear, because when you look at the women that actually do more on the home front, believe it or not, these are educated women, highly educated women, that actually do more. So they not only earn more, and they also do more. And so what that leads to is a generation of mothers that are burnt out. And we can see that because more women are coming to us saying, I definitely need help with my mental health. I am on Zoloft, I am on this, and I have no problem with this, because I've also used these things to cope. But what can we submit to the idea that maybe we're doing too much and we just need to take a break? And so what are the ways for us to take a break? We need to redistribute our labor. If we have the disposable income, right, we need to rechannel some of those resources to get in support. Research has shown that instead of you buying a new couch, get help.
Yeah.
Get help. Sit in that leather chair for the next 10 years, but darn it, get some really good help to clean that couch. So that is my advice to women is, carve out some disposable income that would normally go to vacations, or go to keeping up, the house, or keeping up appearances. We need to carve out some of those income to get in support. And I've heard from a lot of women saying, oh no, Blessing, my husband doesn't like that. He doesn't want anyone coming into the house to help us. He believes it's my job. Really?
That's crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
Oh yeah.
crazy.
And a lot of women are tying the idea that they are doing the chores to motherhood. I don't
Mhm.
understand. It's confusing to me that the definition of motherhood is sacrifice. It's not. You've already done enough sacrificing. Birthing a child, raising a child, that's enough. You don't need to burn out. If you can afford help, or if you have a partner. So those are
Yeah.
the things that, I continue to share with moms within our community.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned that they link it to motherhood, I think something that was super eye-opening for me and the women I work with is what kind of example are you setting for your kids in showing this sort of martyr lifestyle, this self-sacrificing lifestyle you're leading? You're just going to pave the way for them to make the same mistakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're not teaching our girls, right? We're not teaching our girls the right things
Mhm.
by showing a mom that, quite frankly, is tired and exhausted all of the time.
Well, or our sons for that matter. You don't want your sons to be thinking that their wives, their future wives, are going to take on that burden, that
Their
role.
burden.
So, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So so if we think about what mothers can do, raise better sons, right? Raise better sons, that will share in the division of labor at home, and show your girls that, that their life matter, that they matter. And part of, and what that means is that they shouldn't have to sacrifice their life or their career, right, for their
yeah,
household.
absolutely.
Nobody
So,
benefits from a tired and exhausted mom. I can tell you that. Nobody
nobody,
benefits.
nobody, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, why is it important for moms to have an outlet like Mother Honestly, like a place, a community where they can go to find like-minded individuals kind of in the same season that they're in, to read the articles, to listen to the podcast? Like, why is this an important element to have during that season?
I think that women thrive on community. We've always thrived on community. We've always, thrived on coming together, sharing our challenges, having conversations that matter or don't matter. We love to connect. And so Mother Honestly have sort of created that space, that safe space for connection. And that is, that is what was important to me when we started, the community, was how can we meet women where they're at, and how can we create a place where we can have honest, real, and raw conversations. Because a lot of times it's hard to, to even share, right, in detail what you're going through. And so when we connect with our moms, which we do on a daily basis, we ask them, how are you doing? What is top of mind for you? And a lot of them, will share with us consistently, how exhausted they are. And I think that was really the driver for us trying to, um, you know, to bring solutions like Velo, right? To say, we need real solutions, right? In a world where everyone is, bent on chatting about crypto and NFTs and Web3, but we have moms that are exhausted and tired, and there's no childcare, and we would rather invest in crypto, right, and go to space versus investing in our future generations, versus investing in women and their careers. I think that, women do need that space, right? And those are the kind of, sentiments, right, that a lot of them share, which is, we feel abandoned, we feel like we don't matter, we feel, we feel like none of this, right, um, is helpful to us, right? We feel like nothing available right now in the country, is for us, whether that is, again, all the things that I've mentioned that are no longer there as a safety net for women. and all the things that were supposed to be there, right? Like paid leave that we have refused to pass in a country that is so wealthy and so resourceful. And we have made it our mission to say childcare should be the jobs of families. This was mentioned by a particular senator who I refused to name this week, who said, families should take care of their own childcare. And when he says families, you know that it means women, because we truly believe in this country that women will always do this work for free. Yet a lot of families depend on the mother's income, so we can't eat our cake and have it.
Right. Something's got to give for sure. All right. Well, on that note, we are going to head over now to our lightning round. This is where we get to talk about just random fun questions, just so our audience can get to know you more on a personal level. So are you ready?
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right. What book are you reading right now?
Unicorn Space. Find Your Unicorn Space by Eve Rodsky.
All right. If you could go on vacation tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Zanzibar in Tanzania. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. Why not?
All right. What's one thing you never leave your house without?
My cell phone.
Same. What about an app that you can't live without?
Wow, Instagram.
All right. Would you consider yourself more of an introvert or an extrovert?
Definitely an extrovert.
Okay. And what is your guilty pleasure TV show right now?
I don't watch TV. Oh, I consider it a waste of my time. I don't. But when I do, I watch Cocomelon with the kids, if that counts.
I understand. I totally get it. All right, Blessing. Well, on that note, please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Absolutely. So I am at blessing.adesiyan on Instagram. We are also at Mother Honestly on Instagram, as well as everywhere you can find us. Just type in Mother Honestly and we should pop up on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. Our website is motherhonestly.com. And yeah, I think you can just find us around the web.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing this wisdom and these insights with our working mom community.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.